Save $100 off an annual Schoolism subscription. This means you get access to over 200 different lessons organized into over 20 different courses with access to download assignments and level up from top artists like digital painter Craig Mullins, Oscar nominees Dice Satsumi and Robert Kondo, Coco art director of character design, Daniel Arriaga, and many, many more. Schoolism.com only has 2 sales a year for their online classes, so act now. This is a big one. Sale ends August 3rd, 2018. Go to schoolism.com and start learning today. Before, this was a while ago, you mentioned that part of the whole entire kind of long-term plan was to eventually teach, right? So I was wondering if we could just talk about that for a second. Why did you finally want to make a class on schoolism?
Well, I remember you asked me to do it like in 2006, at first, and it was always in the back of my head. But I think that, schoolism, it reaches so many people, and the business model that you've come up with is so reasonable and accessible to so many people, and also that you are really going to every part of the world and getting people to sign up. That's really awesome. That it's not just kind of, well, it's expensive and exclusive, and it's only kind of centered in North America, and so that's really nice. And I hope to be joining you if the class goes well in these far-flung places.
I would love that as well. Absolutely. There was just like a conversation that we had a while back where you're saying that you were planning on working on films till a certain point where you felt like you had something to give back, and then at that point, that's when you would kind of that's when you wanted to kind of teach. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I turned 50, I thought that there was, at some point, people who are younger are, they have much more energy to put up with the 70 hours that's kind of expected of you in that environment. And yeah, I've been doing that for so long and putting in so many hours, working 7 days a week for decades. And I don't want to do that anymore. Now, I know that's a selfish answer to your question, but I also felt that there's nothing really that I could add, because there's no such thing as advanced drawing. It's all just a rigorous application of basic ideas, and those basic ideas applied and understood really fully. I've always remarked that in looking at videos of artists that I admire working, and there aren't any tricks to it. And I've always felt that people have been asking me, "Oh, when are you going to teach? When are you going to tell us these secrets?" And there just aren't any. And so I see, amazing painters paint, and I expect to see some magic dust or pixie sparkles flying off the canvas. It never happens. It's always its own kind of magic, and it's magical because it isn't. It's peculiar. You look at amazing artwork and you say, how could that person actually do that? And it's a lot simpler, but a lot more subtle than you think. So I always thought that I couldn't really teach because I had nothing to say, and everything that I saw out there on the internet, and there's so much instruction out there that it's all saying pretty much basically the same thing, that it is Um, Everybody knows how to light a cube. We know what perspective is. So I didn't feel that I had anything to add, or there was no additional spin or no additional information or magic or insight that I could add to this really wide base of knowledge that's really freely available to everybody. And people such as yourself says, no, but you have a different take on things. And if it came from you, and people would think that it's somehow different, and okay, I'll try that. And in doing this class, I think that I have tried to come at things in a way that hasn't quite been done before. It's a little bit different. Hopefully it's a little bit more clear, and hopefully it's a little bit more organized in showing how I try to think about things. Like I say, it's fundamentals but ruthlessly applied, and I'm trying to say clearly applied. So in a lot of the videos, you'll see that I'm talking about some of the same things. I am repeating myself, but in a different way. And I think it really is important to get these basic ideas clearly expressed and say them three different ways. I'm saying the same thing three different ways because it is so important. So that's why I thought that maybe I could start to teach, is to try to say things in a subtly different way that might get through to some people that haven't understood it or have difficulty understanding some of these basic ideas from the material that's already out there, freely available. So that's why I started this.
Well, something that I've never seen in other people's videos is the way that you explain how different eras saw light and color. You know, if it was Monet that was painting this, this is probably that how he would have changed it in comparison to somebody from the Romanticism period and compared to HDR and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of speak about why knowing these various things might be important to an artist?
Yes, in fact, one of the homework assignments on that particular lesson is taking an old master painting, which is very dark, and interpreting it the way Monet might. So it's an enlightening way to try to look at things. Now, I don't think that one thing I do stress is it's not an improvement or a progression from uh, dark to the light, from early primitive to more advanced ways of looking at things. It's simply different. And I really think it's important that people understand and to be able to interpret whatever they want in whatever way that they want, because that opens up creative possibilities. So if you want something that is highly contrasty and very punchy, as they say, and if that's suitable for what you're trying to do, then go ahead and do that. But you can mix and match. There are hybrid artists, say like a Sargent, somebody, he painted paintings that appear to be impressionistic, but they're really not, because he's still using forms have not dissolved. He's using lots of black. He's using value to show form. And that's not something pure impressionists did. So there are intermediate steps along the way of this kind of opening up of ways of looking at things. But I think that people working now should understand very clearly the different, exactly what these artists were doing, so that they can do what they want and what they consider to be correct for the image that they're doing. So it's not like, well, I'm going to be this type of artist. It could be from different painting to different painting. Sometimes you want something that's filled with light. Sometimes you want something that is very dark and moody. But if you understand how all these things are done, then the choice becomes yours, as opposed to, well, that's the only way I know how to paint. And so that's kind of the idea behind looking at that.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like when you learn how to paint dark and moody, you learn how to paint pure impressionistic It's the connections between the two sets of theories, or the two really great groups of knowledge, where creativity is kind of born.
Yes. You have to have freedom to move back and forth. And I would say drawing is what ties it all together, but in the terms of Impressionists, well, they didn't even concern themselves with drawing too much. So it's radical even for that. I think that's what really cheesed off the academics in the 19th century was the lack of drawing. Even though if they could have looked beyond that, they probably would have seen, they're really onto something.
Schoolism proudly presents Digital Painting with Craig Mullins. Over 9 lessons, Craig is going to go over the core fundamentals behind his digital paintings, learn his thoughts, philosophies, and watch his demos. Each of the 9 lessons comes with assignments to fully understand and absorb the methods. If you're a fan of Craig Mullins, or if you're a digital painter, this is the course for you.